Good morning and welcome to the Midas Ink Supply Systems seminar. My name is Alan Much. This will be the first one in a series of 3, and I hope you'll find it useful and informative. I will provide you with a Midas system overview, together with the benefits, the key hardware and software elements, and how to specify the Midas system to meet your needs. The differences between the Midas system and the Xaar Hydra system, and finally some considerations with respect to installation and integration. If you do have any questions, could you please save these until the end, where I will answer them. The new Midas ink supply system is a compact fluid supply system for original equipment manufacturers and integrators looking for an off-the-shelf solution resulting in a fast time to market, therefore reducing development costs. The Midas system is robust, easy to integrate, and is ideal for both prototyping and as a full production subsystem. We currently offer the Midas system in 2 product variants. The Midas system is fully compatible with the Xaar 501, 502, 1003, 2001 and 2001 Plus printheads. The photo on the left hand side shows the Midas 450 system, which has a maximum flow rate of 450 milliliters per minute, which can be dependent upon inks and applications of course. It comes complete with 1 factory fitted line connection solenoid pairings. The ink system volume is contained within a 60 milliliter tank, plus the volume dependent upon the length of the tube. The Midas 450 is ideal for applications with lower flow rates, which are particularly important for testing, development, or if the application contains expensive fluids. The photo on the right shows the Midas 950 system, which has a maximum flow rate of 950 milliliters per minute, again dependent upon inks and applications. It comes complete with 2 factory-fitted line connection set of solenoid pairings. The ink volume is contained within a 150 milliliter tank, plus the volume dependent on the length of the tube. Please also note that the fluid pump is separate from the main chassis of the Midas body. The Midas 950 is ideally placed for applications that have high volume and high throughput. Let me give you a quick tour of the Midas 450 system. The 950 is the same basic layout, except of course for the separate pump arrangement. On the left hand side you will see the through flow pump, which is in line and connected to the damper unit in a bid to suppress fluid issues such as the water hammer effect or the fluid hammer effect. This dampens this out of the system. The small ink reservoir, 60 milliliters, is angled to allow the ink to circulate without settling, which is very useful for heavily pigmented inks used typically in the ceramics and in some UV white applications. The Midas system comes with a single set of fail-safe and de-airing solenoids. More de-airing solenoids are available for the Midas 950 series. The top of the system has a micropump, which is used to maintain meniscus pressure. The Midas ink fluid path can be traced as I'll show you in the diagram. What actually happens is as the fluid enters the system, it follows through the main product body into the angled tank, up through the meniscus pressure system, round the top of the meniscus pressure system, through to the pump, through into the damping unit, and then into the solenoid, which then distributes the fluid through to the printhead, which then has a return back into the system. And as you can appreciate, the system is a closed loop system, but has an ink feed system at the top for top up to replace the fluid used in printing. The Midas specification in outline has a maximum in-feed pressure of 200 millibars and a maximum return pressure therefore of minus 200 millibars. Fluid temperature range can achieve 65 degrees centigrade if required from ambient. Fluid viscosity at the jetting temperature is between 7 to 25 centipoise. Typical startup time is approximately 15 minutes and typical shutdown time 5 seconds. The operating voltage is 24 volts DC with a maximum current capability of between 6 and 8 amps. Communication interface between the PC and the Midas system is via a 4-wire link, an RS422 to RS485 interface to a USB connection, and this provides the gateway to the PC. The Midas 450 is supplied with one solenoid fitted as factory fitted. The Midas 950C, and the C denotes core, is supplied with position 1 factory fitted and has the option to populate the other 3 ports, providing a total of 4 ports. Additional solenoids can be populated as required by the end user as and when. The Midas 950X, with the X denoting extra, is supplied with position 1 and 5 factory fitted and has the option to populate the other 3 ports, providing a total of 5 ports. Again, they can be added as required by the user at a later date. There are a number of Midas accessories. The valve pair or the valve set can be purchased as one item, which includes the fail-safe solenoid valve and the de-airing solenoid valve, and has its own part number. However, the fail-safe solenoid and the de-airing solenoid valves can be purchased as separate items if required. We also offer within the range a remote heater, and the remote heater is used to heat the ink in a closer proximity to the printhead and can be used with all Midas systems. We also offer a degasser unit adapter. The degasser unit can be fitted in line to dissipate gas that can build up within the system as a result of foaming or use with particular fluids that exhibit the trait of foaming. The remote manifold set can also be purchased, which has a heater assembly already fitted to it, and again this can be fitted closer to the printheads to maintain the thermal and temperature coefficient of the ink closer to the printhead. As part of the accessory list, and some people may see this as a prerequisite to using the Midas system, and that is a power supply. However, if you have a power supply system and you can tap off the 24 volts DC, then this is an optional item that you might wish not to purchase. We also offer the comms link and the gateway connector as previously outlined. As previously stated, the number of Xaar printheads that can be supported are the Xaar 1003, 2001, 2001 Plus, the Xaar 501 and the 502. The following table depicts how many printheads can be used with a fully populated system, thinking about using the maximum flow rate. So for example, on the Midas 450, if you're using a GS6 Xaar 1003 printhead, then the maximum number of printheads that can be connected to the fully populated system is 3. And looking across the table, if you look at the Xaar 501, GS8, the maximum number that could be connected to that in terms of printheads would be 4. So this outlines how you would specify and populate the valve set that you need for a fully configurable Midas system. I think you'll agree with me that the flexibility offered by the three systems gives you lots of choice and the ability to adapt and develop the system as you move forward. Typical Midas systems builds would include the Midas 450, a power supply, the RS422 to USB converter, potentially a remote manifold or a remote heater if the ink requires heating, and a degassing adapter unit if the fluid requires degassing. A typical 950 system would incorporate the power supply, RS422 to USB converter, the correct number of solenoids to pair and to match how many heads you were looking to drive, the remote heater, and a degassing adapter if required. A number of considerations and thoughts regarding the installation and integration of a Midas system. The Midas system is smaller and lighter than Hydra. It's 80% smaller in physical size. It's easy to mount in less than 1 hour. The small ink tank capacity of 60 millilitres for the Midas 450 and 150 millilitres for the Midas 950 make the system very efficient with regard to ink and potential ink wastage. The Midas system can be placed 5 meters from the printhead using the remote manifold. In terms of its robustness, the small ink tank capacity and fail-safe solenoids protect against ink escape and ink loss. Fail-safe protects against ink loss during power loss, and the de-airing solenoids help combat foaming. The pump has a vacuum, so meniscus is maintained during shutdown and loss to stop ink loss during switch off. There are no moving parts inside the tank, and the level is detected using an ultrasonic level sensor. In terms of its performance, the rapid startup time of less than 15 minutes and immediate shutdown of 5 seconds ensure optimum performance. The ink temperature can be controlled up to 65 degrees centigrade, and the system has a lower power consumption, typically 150 watts. No calibration is needed, and ink can circulate within the tank, avoiding settling. The system is modular, so it can facilitate varied applications and can be fitted in different parts of an OEM subsystem or end equipment. It can run multiple heads out of the box as standard. In terms of system setup and installation, unpacking and assembling the hardware, a few things to bear in mind. The tubing from Midas to the printhead and required T-junctions are to be provided by the user or the integrator. However, what we are doing is we are looking at offering these as purchased items from Xaar. Filters, degassers, sensors must be fitted before the remote manifold or the remote heater, so the system may compensate for the impedance losses created by the systems. Tubing length must be the same for all heads driven by the same in-feed and out-feed lines. Installation of the software can be downloaded via the extranet. You can download and install the system directly onto a PC or laptop PC. As specified in the user manual on pages 32 to 39, identification of the meniscus pressure and differential pressure can both be achieved using the set point calculation wizard, which takes a lot of the laborious setup times out of the initial installation and setup. Entering the values into the calculator and adjusting the in-feed and out-feed pressures accordingly are easily achieved. Please note though that the settings provided are a starting point that will not account for impedance losses from inline filters and degassers, etc., that will need further adjustment of the in-feed and out-feed during the setup phase. The Midas software system requirements for the laptop or PC that you're going to use with the system include Win XP, Win 7, 8 and 10, and requires a .NET 4 or higher. A number of the key software features include automatic calculation of recirculation meniscus settings, software control of ink priming, startup cycle and bypass time, separate functionality, standard user and advanced user, so that you can actually predetermine the user profile upon setting up the system. This is particularly important if you're handing over the finished system onto a less advanced user. Ability to lock the user interface, full temperature control, setting and checking alarms, purging the systems and initiating a soft purge from the software. And all of this is supported using TeamViewer. Full functional operation of the software, together with guidance on setting, will be provided in a future webinar. Materials compatibility is important when purchasing any ink supply system. To ensure that any chosen fluid will not damage any of the materials contained within this construction, we have chosen materials within the Midas system that are compatible with most fluids within the ceramics and UV markets. However, to be 100% sure, it is possible to obtain a materials compatibility kit from us to check it for yourself. Full details of how to confirm the materials compatibility will be provided by Xaar. We do have the opportunity to look at other fluids outside the traditional compatibility span. If you believe that you have a fluid that falls outside the traditional span, please contact me directly and I will confirm this with you. We do have the additional option of supplying custom Midas systems. However, upon consumption of a suitable solution, this will be a bespoke product with a bespoke price. We have a plethora of additional support material, including data sheets, user manuals for both the 450 and the 950, Hydra and Midas comparison charts, material compatibility charts and sample kits, and spares kits. Our next webinar will be on the 25th of April 2017, and there will be a sign-up link for the next webinar emailed as a follow-up after this one. Please ask questions through the webinar software if you have any. As promised, my contact details are listed as you can see on the screen. Future webinars will include the following. We have a webinar that's intended to be a practitioner's guide for the installation of the Xaar Midas system, how to install and integrate a system, how to operate the system, including startup and shutdown, a tricks and traps practical overview, including many frequently asked questions regarding installation, common faults and troubleshooting, and an overview of the spares and accessories proposition. Another future webinar will be included for advanced users, and this is all about essentially getting the most from your Midas system. So it will look at some of the software and some of the more advanced features of the system in a bid to try and optimize the system for your own use or your end customers' use. We will solicit some more in-depth questions and answers from the field and incorporate them into this training webinar. We'll be staying online for the next 2 to 4 minutes, so if you have any questions, please send them through. If you need to flush the system, that is achievable. Let me just read the question out so that everybody else on the webinar can understand it. The question was, can I wash the system if I want to change the ink batch from C to Y? Yes, indeed, you can do that. And there's full instructions in how to do that in the user guides. Are there any more questions? I have another question, and the question there is the Midas system compatible with UV ink? And the answer to that is yes, it is compatible with UV ink. Somebody's asked me a question regarding how is the pressure generated, hydraulic or pneumatic pump. It's hydraulic is the answer to the question. There is a difference between the soft purge through the software and the manual purge button. The manual purge button gives you an instantaneous purge on the system, whereas the software can be used in a timed format at any time that you prescribe, i.e. at the start or at various stages throughout the printing process that you want to purge to clear nozzles. So it can be timed or it can be programmed in, or the manual purge can just be as and when you require the manual purge. There is another question, do we need to use the software provided, or is an IDE available to integrate into your own software? Well, the software is open, it will be provided, and we can also make the IDE available so that you can integrate it into your own software. All you have to do is ask, and we can provide that for you. There is also a question here regarding how big are the pressure fluctuations at the printing head. It will really depend on what fluid you're jetting, the speed in which you're jetting, and what sort of laydown you're trying to achieve. So in terms of the pressure fluctuations, it can vary, but the system should be able to compensate in a bid to keep everything wet and the system continually jetting. So it should manage the fluctuations for you in terms of its recirculating process. So that shouldn't be a problem. The next question, is there a return pump like the Hydra, or does the Midas just use vacuum to pull fluid back into the main reservoir? Essentially, the Midas system uses the vacuum to pull fluid back into the main reservoir. That's correct. I have another question. What is the minimum ink quantity to test one print head in the Midas 450? Well, what you'd ideally need is enough to fill the small tank, so 60 millilitres. The ideal would be that you would use more than that so that you closed the system, so that you had enough fluid going all the way around the system to have a complete zero air path, and that you had fluid hitting all of the elements of the head. So I would be suggesting there 200 or 300 millilitres. Got another question. Which is the minimum ink quantity to test one print head on a Midas 450? Oh, I think that's the same question, sorry. I've answered that one. Upon shutdown, does all the fluid go back to the main reservoir like the Hydra? No, the fluid stays in situ. So the fluid stays in the system, and the vacuum pump maintains the meniscus pressure at the head. Are there any more questions? Certainly you have my contact details, so I'm happy to answer any further questions that you have via email. If you have any further questions, please contact me via email. Thank you. Bye-bye.